When a routine traffic stop spirals into a life-changing confrontation, a police officer's worst assumptions are shattered by a truth that echoes far beyond the moment. The sun dipped low over New Orleans as Marcus Davis drove steadily, the hum of his car blending with faint jazz on the radio. Calm and composed, he slowed at a yellow light, stopping just as it turned red. Flashing red and blue lights lit up his rearview mirror. Marcus furrowed his brow but stayed composed, pulling over. As the police cruiser stopped, Marcus rolled down his window. Out stepped Officer Ben Harper, a white man in his mid-30s, adjusting his belt as he approached. "License and registration," Harper said curtly. Marcus handed over his documents calmly, though Harper's gaze scanned him with suspicion. "Do you know why I pulled you over?" Harper asked. "No, officer, I don't," Marcus replied, meeting his gaze. "You didn't come to a full stop at the light," Harper said, though his tone wavered. "I slowed down, but if I missed something, I understand," Marcus said evenly. Harper's eyes lingered on Marcus's suit and clean car. "You're not from around here, are you?" "I moved here a few months ago. My address is on the license," Marcus replied. "Where are you headed in such a hurry?" Harper asked, crossing his arms. "Just going home," Marcus said, sensing tension building. Harper stepped back, folding Marcus's documents slowly. "Step out of the car," he ordered. Marcus's grip on the wheel tightened briefly, but he stayed calm. "Is there a reason, officer?" "Step out," Harper snapped. Marcus opened the door and stepped out, standing taller than Harper. "Hands where I can see them," Harper commanded. Marcus complied. "Is there something specific you're looking for, officer?" he asked. "It's routine," Harper replied. "You can never be too careful." Marcus turned his head slightly. "Incidents involving men in suits driving sedans, or does this have more to do with something else?" The question hit hard. Harper straightened, his hand drifting toward his belt. "Watch your tone," he warned. "There was no defiance in my voice," Marcus replied. "Just a question." "You seem confident, like you know what's going to happen," Harper muttered. "Confidence isn't the issue here, officer. Respect is," Marcus said. The words hung in the air. Harper's jaw tightened. "Turn around and place your hands on the hood," he barked. Marcus complied. Harper patted him down roughly but found nothing. "You're clean," Harper muttered. Marcus turned, his gaze sharp. "Of course I am. Now, officer, if you're done—" "I'm not done," Harper interrupted, his voice strained. "You think you're smarter than me? Think you can talk your way out of this?" Marcus didn't flinch. "I just believe in fairness, and so far I'm not seeing much of it here." The tension hung heavy between them. Harper wavered, but Marcus stood firm. Harper stood silently, his frustration clear. He had patted Marcus down and found nothing, yet his unease lingered. There was something about Marcus, his calmness, his confidence, that threw Harper off. "You're clean," Harper muttered, almost begrudgingly. Marcus straightened his suit jacket, meeting Harper's gaze with sharp composure. Silence hung between them, heavy and charged. Harper stepped closer. "What's your deal?" he asked, irritation creeping into his voice. "You seem awfully sure of yourself, like you think you've got this all figured out." Marcus tilted his head. "I don't have a deal, officer. I just expect fairness." Harper scoffed. "Fairness," he repeated mockingly. "Out here I call the shots. You think you can stand there dressed like that and talk circles around me?" Marcus's eyes narrowed slightly, but his voice stayed steady. "Confidence isn't the issue here, officer. Respect is." Harper shifted his weight, clearly unsettled. "You've had run-ins with the police before, haven't you?" he asked. "I've interacted with law enforcement many times," Marcus said calmly. "Some encounters were better than others. But I've learned one thing. How people use authority says more about them than the person they're questioning." Harper folded his arms. "And what does it say about me then?" he asked, his voice laced with sarcasm. Marcus stepped forward slightly, his voice calm but piercing. "You assume that I wouldn't know my rights, that I wouldn't understand the laws you're sworn to uphold and why? That assumption says everything about you." Harper froze, the words cutting deep. "I've got nothing to prove to you," he said, his voice strained. "I'm doing my job." Marcus let out a slow breath. "Doing your job isn't about proving anything. It's about serving with integrity." Harper's frustration boiled over. "You think you're better, don't you? Walking around like the rules don't apply to you." Marcus shook his head. "Justice isn't just about catching the bad guys. It's about holding those sworn to protect and serve to the highest standards of integrity, fairness, and respect." The statement hung in the air. For a moment, Harper seemed to consider it but said nothing. You can talk all you want, Harper muttered. But out here, I'm in control. Marcus stepped back, his movements measured. Control doesn't come from a badge. It comes from how you choose to use it. The remark left Harper speechless. He shifted uncomfortably, his confidence cracking. The silence between them grew heavier. Finally, Harper turned and walked back to his cruiser. His hand rested on the door handle as he glanced back. "Don't think this is over," he said quietly. Marcus watched, calm and composed. "I don't, but I know what's right and I know what isn't." Harper got into his car and drove off, the flashing lights disappearing into the night. Marcus stood by his car, the cool evening air brushing against his face. He knew this wasn't the end, not for Harper and not for him. Marcus stood by his car, watching the empty street where Harper's cruiser had disappeared. The encounter was tense, but Marcus knew it wasn't over. Not for Harper, and not for him. Sliding into the driver's seat, Marcus started the engine and drove away, his thoughts already on the next steps. Harper wasn't just one officer with a bad attitude, he represented a deeper issue. The next morning, Marcus sat in his office at the New Orleans Internal Affairs Division. Sunlight streamed through the blinds onto his desk, where Harper's personnel file lay open. Notes detailed complaints of unprofessional conduct and excessive stops, patterns ignored for too long. A knock at the door interrupted him. "Come in," Marcus called. His assistant Lauren entered, holding a folder. "Morning, Mr. Davis. The misconduct reports are here. Chief Daniels also wanted to remind you about next week's review." Marcus nodded. "Thanks, Lauren. Can you set up a meeting with Chief Daniels today? There's something I need to discuss." Lauren hesitated but nodded. "Of course," she said, leaving the folder on his desk. Marcus flipped through the reports, the patterns becoming clearer. Harper wasn't an anomaly. He was part of a culture that needed change. Later, Marcus sat across from Chief Daniels, a seasoned officer known for his pragmatism. "I had an encounter with Officer Harper last night," Marcus began. "It wasn't just a routine stop. It exposed a bigger issue." Daniels raised an eyebrow. "Harper? He's had complaints, but nothing serious." "That's the problem," Marcus said. "Complaints get ignored, and patterns grow worse. Harper's behavior reflects deeper flaws." Daniels sighed. "What do you suggest?" "A department-wide review," Marcus replied. "Not just of officers, but training, leadership, and accountability." Daniels frowned. "This won't be popular." "I know," Marcus said, "but we owe it to the community and to officers who honor the badge." Daniels studied him before nodding. "I'll support it, but prepare for resistance." "I'm ready," Marcus said simply. In the weeks that followed, Marcus led meetings, gathered data, and held forums. Harper's name surfaced repeatedly, not as an isolated issue, but as part of a systemic problem. Pushback came from within, but Marcus pressed on. One evening, as Marcus reviewed reports, his phone buzzed. A message from Lauren read, "Community forum tomorrow night. Full attendance expected." Marcus smiled faintly. Change wouldn't happen overnight, but it was happening. The next evening, Marcus stood before a packed community center. Officers, city officials, and residents filled the room. Marcus cleared his throat. "Justice isn't just about catching the bad guys," Marcus began. "It's about holding ourselves to the highest standards of integrity, fairness, and respect. That's what the badge represents, and what we're building together." The room erupted into applause, but Marcus stayed focused. This wasn't the end of the story, it was just the beginning. Do you believe it's fair to judge someone's actions based on their appearance or profession? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below.